Now we see here are flowers. Basically, do come back. Now, what do I do with my days? Well, about I was going to say a quarter of the time, but it's not. It should be. Now I wish I had my prop. There's one thing I love in life only, which is my beautiful hand thin sickle, which is I use. Oh, if somebody hires me to clear, say around a gate, I use my hand sickle. It's 100 years old. It's actually called a Crumman, given to me by old man Ralph. I use my hand sickle because it's quicker than a strimmer. I mean, I was brought up with a sickle between my teeth, and by the time, right, I must remember why I'm actually filming these verges. By the time some Londoner has started up it's always his. So, I've got a good line on this. I really do, and it's not my line. It's one of my compañeros. By the time the Londoner has started up his £300 strimmer, the strimmers are notoriously problematical. I've cut the necessary minimal vegetation, and most importantly, left the little bits, the important bits, which nature needs. Now, in case I forget, I'll come back to that in a minute. There is a parallel road to this road, and with one of my compañeros, we drove down a few hours ago, and all the flowers are closed up. I just suspect they've sprayed it. If they have, I need to go back and have a look. That would be a crime. A real crime. But who would be the criminal? The criminal would really be the National Trust, because they have so much of the land in this region. They pay ridiculous amounts of money for roads to be resurfaced and uniforms for all the little pets. And yet, do they actually lobby locally to make sure? Oh yeah, Londoner. That's a horsefly. Londoner would be going berserk at that. Anyway, I gave up, but for 10 years I monitored in the marches between Clun and Brecon, and a strip of about 20 kilometres either side of that route. I would just, by cycling, always dual purpose, going to see somebody about, could we have a group to focus on making a sign should there be another referendum on Europe. As I've written many times in Ralph Schism, although I have yet to write it properly, Nigel, bless his cotton socks, deserved his Brexit, because the Greens are always the same people as those who would vote to remain in the EU. If you look at Ralph Schism, I think it was yesterday morning, I mean, the euro is the currency that is, according to the financial markets yesterday, the euro is the currency that's actually doing the best. I think it's this year. Top of a bread basket of 10 of them, including the US dollar. Yeah, but to the point. Just keeping an eye on the truth, the reality of the environment. None of the Greens ever do it. And the last 10 years they started to focus much more on what's between people's legs. I know, because I've got all the emails, because I had a mole within them, and under 30. Anyway, to the point. Here is, well, now this is a new underclass phone, £60. It has its recorder left on all day. as I have for about 10 years. 10 years ago I began this, although 15 years ago really. 15 years ago with a compañera. We would monitor, we would go to meetings, etc. And we wanted to keep a real record, and then we keep a record of some other things. It sounds very boring. No, it isn't. Anyway, by 10 years ago, well, or rather 10 years ago, because I'd made the mistake of allowing, in a region much like the nicer areas of Pastiland, I'd made the mistake of inviting into the life of somebody else a pure innocent, the most innocent, wonderful person I've ever known in my life, much younger. I'd invited an American in, who's one of those who, well, she won't be at Glastonbury, she's too old for that, but would be at every craft fair there with her pottery. Her whole image was the most perfect, thoughtful community person. She'd married a wealthy-ish man who was a manager in the National Health Service in Whitehall, high up. She said that she'd had depression, so I made the mistake of inviting her into the life of somebody, a younger person I knew had depression, but that person I knew very well for several years, had managed it, and had often spoken with me, and we carefully, thoughtfully managed it. And I thought that young person might benefit from a friend in an area, I don't know about Serbia, I don't even know about Poland, but most of Britain, at least it's open about these things, mental health, etc. So I lived in an area that was like, not very good at that, bit dinosaur-like. Anyway, as this American was invited in, I realised, she's doing a coercion manipulation job. She should be in fucking court. She's persuading the younger person that she's wrong and should be taking antidepressants. And within about 2 months, that younger person was actually committed to a mental hospital. Full-on wacky ward. Martians, little green men. She had a sense of humour. She had a beautiful voice. She said, I saw her a few months later when she'd come out looking terrible on serious headfuck antipsychotic drugs. One good thing, they let me play the piano, and one day I was singing the Gnarls Barkley song, top of my beautiful voice, and everybody joined in. What an image for a film, but here's the point. No, in Britain you can't trust anybody. Now, I have the most magnificent chronicle. There's somebody who's probably watching this who thinks, oh, it might be used against her. No, there is a clear-cut lie. My chronicle actually is much more than a chronicle. Occasionally, I very rarely go back to it, but occasionally, I was walking down the other end of this bay, and I met some people who had a van, and they had a really good top quality solar panel. They assured me, I quizzed them for some time, told me the model, etc. For only 140 quid. And it's like, okay, they told me interesting information. It's quicker than getting out my notepad. But to the point. It's the real story of the real why Europe was lost. And I know that. And I know nobody else has done it. I simply don't. It wasn't planned. It was there always. This has been on to protect myself. Because Britain really is the false allegation capital of Europe. I mean, of the world, I should say. Possibly America beats us in that. I even met, a year and a half ago, a quite wonderful, seemingly wonderful woman at a Christmas fair selling Gabon Mate approved expensive coffee pouches. What a joke. And she had some land, and I said, come down and help you a bit with my scythe, just for company. Because we'd had some good chats. And she said, no, you can't, because my 2 adopted 18-year-old daughters automatically make false allegations about every man that they ever meet. Now, I do what's known as drissing. If you look at the film Intouchable, Driss knows, if anyone can know what's for someone's mutual benefit, genuine benefit, you ponder it, and he does it. He sets up what that other person needs. Now, what do I know? In this absurd society, because I talk about this many times with random, always the kind of goodies who have tie-dye bags and that kind of thing. You can tell who they are. They work in schools, social services, whatever. They will say absurd things. The number one get out of jail, in other words, don't fucking do anything for anybody line that has become virtually compulsory in this country is everybody's different. No, they aren't. The science says if you touch somebody, everybody has nice hormones that come into them. If you sleep with somebody, everybody is psychologically, or rather biochemically, the soup that is inside us is better. There are rat studies that show this. A rat artificially brought up separate from the rest of the rats in a region has much higher cortisol and adrenaline levels. A rat that lives in its natural state with a gang of other rats cuddle up at night has much lower cortisol adrenaline. Anyway, to the point. Yes, do come back. I have the most fantastic chronicles, except people don't understand the line, and they don't actually understand. I mean, somebody said to me that morality is an absurd, old-fashioned, stupid word. Guess what? She lives in Hatesville, exactly. No, there is an exact line. If somebody takes public money, big time, categorically, anything they say, do, as long as it doesn't really hurt their children, but then anyone that goes into any kind of public role, and that includes being, for example, a trustee for the Nazi Trust. I'm sorry, they're fair game, but to the point, because that sounds all. What's the word? I don't even know what it means. Troll. George Eliot trolled the church in Silas Marner, and good job too, because even then they're fucking thieves. To the point. Yeah, the line. If you set yourself up as a community leader, which is always, by the way, in Britain, always, and I've known many, community leader, of course, the worst ones, they say, oh, I don't want to lead. I'm not a leader of anything. I don't even believe in leadership. We believe in the peace pipe model of democracy, which plenty of good people that I've known say, actually, no, we've tried it. It doesn't really work. Anyway, that's for the 25-year-olds who think that their universities and their so-called communities and festivals are actually teaching them something real, or rather utopian. But and I don't mind. I'm a total utopian, but I'm also practical. If something don't work, okay, you can adjust it, reframe it, try and reset it. But generally, these things don't work unless you have a very simple and clear manifesto that is stated as something that's going to be shared among 3 or 4 people, so that you've got at least 3 witnesses, and ideally one of them on. In other words, this is the deal. You pay this, I pay that. You do that, you do that. Yes, what do I do? So, yeah, from time to time I get employed to do jobs like redo a bit of fencing, although I always prefer wood. And down here, mind you, it was less bad in the marches, but this is generally for women, because the men sort of do it for themselves. It's astonishing, the last 10 years of Britain, and I've had that on every second that I've been at work. They always fuck you over for your wages. Oh, no, don't be, I pay. Now what they do is they'll, after you've been doing their jobs for a month or 2, it's like, oh, this is great. Right, we're going to do that. We're going to do that job, and I will say, well, that job needs good weather. So I always get more inquiries during good weather. So are you definitely doing that job? And can you definitely afford to do that job? Using minimal materials, I recycle as much as possible, or use as much recycled material as possible. Oh, they're certain. They're absolutely certain. And then what do you know? Quite often, without even telling you, their plans have completely changed and you don't get the job, having booked out weeks, certainly days, for their job. Now, unfortunately, for the sort of work that I enjoy doing, and it's independent and working in beautiful places, you can't do an upfront contract and deposit. But, oh, bless your soul, tough luck. Aha! In the actual countryside, in rural places, this, all my life, and I know for a fact because I do read proper history, for kind of all modern civilization, which in Britain is about 1500 years, I guess, or a bit longer. The rural order, a deal's a deal, is the only way the countryside works. And it's quite clear that that was widely understood 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, we weren't just battling and chopping each other's heads off. There had to be collaboration, cooperation, collectivization of the land. Everything, virtually everything was done collectively. And it could only be done by a deal being a deal. Nobody can do this anymore in this country. Anyway, why have I actually turned this on? Oh God, yeah. I got so much good stuff that bit by bit, I'm going to start rolling out. It needs to be rolled out. There is a line though. Somebody who puts themselves into the community, or their Facebook with their 3,000 so-called friends, very actively. Now those people actually, they're seeking public money. Sometimes they've had it. But if you know, oh yes, the most important thing of all, anybody who's not born and bred, Britain is so weird, so bizarre. I've lived all over Europe. The rest of Europe ain't like Britain. We've just so spun off at a really sick tangent of total atomization, total fractured, fragile, dangerous, broken mirrors. Anyone not born in Britain, categorically, their story, their behaviour is private because they are totally innocent. It is impossible to know what the line of behaviour is in this society. Now, why do I say this? Why do I seem like a solo prat poncing around? Because, kind of miraculously, but it has always been the kind of plan. Over the last 3 or 4 months, I have 4 really pretty close compañeros, all female. Forget it with a man in this country. They're all lost. Those stories I need to tell. You can't just say that. You can't just damn all of men. But I'm sorry, I've had quite a lot to do, certainly from 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, with the goody men. The men who are meant to be monitoring. Is illegal spray being used? Blah, blah, blah. You know, having their ear on. What are the council up to? Does that person over there called the McCurrachs have planning permission for that habitation that's been built in the woodlands called Kennel Wood? Well, last time I looked on the planning records, I don't think it was approved as a habitation, when clearly there are people regularly staying there for quite long periods. Bet they're paying that as well. Funny that, when she ran the Extinction Rebellion and pretended to be ultra goody, and he's an actual town councillor. Right, to get to the point. Now, you see, there you go, there's the perfect example. If you're born and bred and really pushing yourself out in the smuggest conceivable way as the goodies of an area, and endlessly are seeking that, well, it's not love, it's fake, it's, well, then you've crossed the line. But if you're an English woman who has spent 6 months wasting my fucking time with all sorts of mad, gonna do this, gonna do that, gonna do that. But at least you admit 25% of you is in a mess when you really should have grown out of it. Private schools, I'm afraid, don't tell you how to do that. They don't tell you how to grow up. No. They're innocent. Unless they're behaving in a way that cascades onto kids, which it so often does. And perhaps others need to learn. But even then, learn from the case study, the story. Law and society, literature and history, so-called civilization, is only based on stories. Cautionary tales. Yeah, actually it's quite a good one, this one. But I would never name her. I would never even in any way identify her. Because, well, it's bad to feel pity for people. I kind of do. Because she kind of gets it. But then she's lost yet another cult. The smartest, most subtle cult of them all. Oracle Girl. Anyway, one of my compañeros. You see, what I do is I copy everybody into everything. And they know I only choose people who are... that sounds like I've got some kind of messiah complex. No, I allow a genuine alliance to develop. But I'm testing from day one, because I've been bored for 10 years, because I can never find an ally. And nobody ever, I used to do it all the time, nobody would driss on my behalf. I needed some drissing done 15 years ago, actually 23 years ago. The first one who really should have been doing a bit of drissing, Christina, who ran off to the church after pretending to be the Steiner playgroup operator for many years. Total fake. Oh, Simon, your daughter is my favourite. Really? So, did you ever actually do anything? Did you actually do anything when you saw evil? Of course not. They're such fakes. Yeah, drissing. I wonder if someone is drissing for me. Anyway, yeah, so of course it's insulting, but they love being insulted because they're my equals. Even though all of them have got butterfly-itis. But my elves, they all know the score. They've been told 100 times. And they're not to help me. This is me bolstering them to say their say, which they kind of want to. But we've been on long journeys, which I've been so bored just waiting for a failed journey. How long am I going to wait? I don't know. Anyway, bizarrely, it's kind of worked. However, some of the old cliches, of course, or whatever you want to call them, fables, aphorisms, be careful what you wish for. I'm smarter than that. Because I put them through such testing grounds that by the time actually anything works, I'm actually bored of them. I've had to put so much of myself into it. However, they do get it. And they do get it that, well, of late, last few weeks, God, some great case studies in how you can't trust absolutely anybody ever. And the funniest thing is, when somebody who really imagined should be trustworthy. Oops, somebody coming. The end.